one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto. My name is Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. Welcome into the chat. We got a lot of you coming in here already. I see Checks My Pulse, Addy Low, Valiant Low Key, Rupsar, and a lot of others. So peg the like button, please, on your way in to help support Real DeFi. We appreciate all of you guys being here tonight. We have a good one for you. And yeah, we're going to talk about tonight, Trump unburdens crypto from what has been. I feel like a great woman once said that quote, maybe about some other topics, but I can't remember who it was. But we're going to talk about that tonight because, man, did the Trump administration get off on the right foot, especially when it comes to crypto last week? I mean, just enacting all kinds of executive orders and all kinds of new policies just out the wazoo. We have the various agencies like the SEC getting a complete and utter facelift. Basically, just crypto policy in this country, in the United States, is just basically been turned on its head over the last week. So we're going to get to some of those specific changes. We got the FOMC today, which was a nothing burger, pretty much as expected. They didn't do anything and will continue to do nothing, and nobody really cares. We've got that. We have all these changes. It's so weird, like these executive orders and things by Trump. And if you read some of the language of what it's instructing the SEC to do, which is now headed up by Paul Atkins, which is a much more crypto-friendly guy, it seems like we should be getting something on this SEC Richard Hart case here, like now, if not, within a week anyway. I mean, we're really down to the nitty gritty. So we have so many things to get to, a whole bunch of new onboarding things that are really bullish for PulseChain. We got Richard Hart tweeting all kinds of stuff about PDI last week, all kinds of great stuff going on. So welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you all being here. Ewok, how are you feeling about the markets tonight?
Amazing. Just things are just starting to line up, and it's like the dominoes that you're setting up for the big show, and it just, everything's just kind of turning in that direction and lining up, I think, the way they need to be. Whether we get a decision this week or not, I don't think it matters a whole lot. It'll be coming in due time. So just a lot of bullish things on the horizon. Like you said, the FOMC was nothing. I was watching I don't even remember who it was. They were kind of doing a live stream this afternoon while it was going on and commentating. And, the poll was like, well, how do you think it's going to affect crypto? And honestly, nothing changed. And right. That's how I voted. And I didn't think it would do anything. Sure enough, it doesn't look like it's affected anything. So nothing burger there. Just things are lining up. It's looking good. People are becoming more active, getting involved. There's lots of onboarding. There's just it's looking good. I can't say more about it.
It is looking good. And I'll give you our poll question. Speaking of that corrupt SEC versus Richard Hart, or versus the entities of PulseChain, whatever the hell if they know who they're suing, whoever it is, when will there be a dismissal decision in the SEC PulseChain case? We've got a poll for you. We got the options of by the end of the week. That's leading so far right now. That's 48 hours that 42% of the people think that we will get a decision here in the next 48 hours. The next option is by the end of February. That's at 32% so far. So, given another month to see. And we're going to get to why this is an interesting discussion. Is it just in the judge's hands at this point? Does it have anything to do with the SEC's change up? We're going to get to that. At 26% is later in 2025, so deep into the year, and then nobody so far voting on by the end of March or April for kind of an extended timeline there. So we will get to what that stuff means specifically. Addy here says tomorrow. Okay. Give me an extra day. if you don't mind. I have some things moving around that another day would help me. Yeah, so let's take a look real quick. We'll speed through the Bitcoin prices. Bitcoin kind of charging up right now here over the last couple hours. We got it up over 104K. Dude, it's so funny how quick this stuff just goes in the rearview mirror. Like just the other day, literally Sunday into Monday was like, oh, this DeepSeek AI from China, and NVIDIA drops however much it dropped. And, there's just no point anymore. They figured out AI, forget it, risk on assets are done, cancel the bull market. And Bitcoin already totally recovered that move, which is just, it was maybe the dumbest dip that I can remember in the history of all dips. And when we'll discuss that here with this conversation, Ethereum just over 3,100 right now. It's still ass against Bitcoin. I think the ratio is 0.003 or 0.03 or whatever. Still looking bad as far as ETH goes. But talking about like this action with Bitcoin recently, and just I want to give you the opportunity, Ewok, as somebody who's been here like full length, like 3 cycles practically now. The tradition of some kind of China FUD being somewhere and everything. Obviously, the last time around, there was a certain virus you may or may not have heard of that obviously in 2020 created a lot of issues. But this DeepSeek thing, Deep State, whatever the hell it's called, being released and just creating this drama. I mean, I don't know if I blame China for this. I blame dumbass investors that react every piece of news that comes out. So I know we're talking super short-term time frame here, but what do you make of all that?
Yeah. Again, we've seen it every cycle. I've seen it every cycle that there's FUD that comes out, whether it's them banning miners or making the Bitcoin unusable in their country, or it's always something. I think I mentioned it to you when we were talking the other day. I said, it's funny that China always has something to do with things right before the real bull run takes off. And, I just find it very ironic that this time it was an AI something, again, a lot of people are just irresponsibly trying to react and get an advantage. And that's really all it is. They think sell the news has to happen every time. But a lot of them end up hurting themselves because it does recover so quickly and they don't really make a whole lot of profits on it at all. It's just they end up in the same spot and spend more fees. So yeah, it's a big nothing burger. We've been going sideways and we've been really staying in this range. The range is about 11. I don't know. It's almost $20,000, but when you're at $100,000 price tag, that range really isn't that much when it's going back and forth, and that's been since essentially November, middle of November. We've been kind of just chopping in this range. It looks like pure accumulation to me. There's people getting in and out, people accumulating their positions, and that's all we're seeing. But there will be probably some sort of news that catapults it upwards. But again, I don't think the AI thing had really a whole lot to do with anything besides other people just losing position that they should have stayed in.
Yeah, I think so too. Very, very weird stuff. I saw it Monday morning. I'm like, what is this? Why are people even talking about this? But not to say that, innovation's innovation. I just don't understand the short-term ridiculous sell-off. Just makes no sense at all. But
it doesn't.
And then on a longer term, just for Bitcoin, and we'll kind of speed through this because we have so much to get to. But what do you think here over the next few months? We've seen Bitcoin and more so, I want to talk about Ethereum because I was looking actually at the 2021 cycle, and maybe I should stop doing that. Maybe we all should stop doing that as much. And maybe we should be looking at 2017 because that might be more the type environment we're in kind of politically, obviously, in the United States now. But Ethereum had I think it was a big January, or like leading into January, there was a 2x in there somewhere very early in 2021 before it obviously went to its first top in May of like 4,800 or whatever. And we're just seeing Ethereum, continue to sit here doing nothing. I think we've got to be like sentiment, like pretty much at the bottom. The ETH BTC ratio still looks horrible on the chart, but as far as, the sentiment around Ethereum is just absolutely horrible right now. And not only that, we are starting to see a bit of a rotation. Like we're seeing Solana start to move down. We literally saw the president 2 days before he was inaugurated create a meme coin, or somebody within him creates a meme coin on Solana. It basically runs up, starts to tank. Then there's a Melania coin. It tanks, rugs pretty much, obviously. And then we see Trump sell off a lot of that and buy tons of Ethereum. He's been buying Ethereum every single day. So do you think this is the start of the ETH turnaround? Because, man, it feels like it, even though the ratio is still horrible.
Well, yeah, I do, only because there is still so much Bitcoin, Ethereum in the liquidity pools. There are so many markets that have that Bitcoin Ethereum pair. So I really think once Bitcoin decides to launch, which it will, we're going to see a 50 to 100,000 point gain here probably in the upcoming few months. So yeah, I mean, you're going to see that rising tide lifting all ships, and Ethereum will benefit from it as well. Back to what you were saying, though, this pattern here that we're in looks like the start of the same one that we were kind of in when it chopped around from 2019 to 2020 before it really took off in 21. So I mean, it just has a image of that little dip, the same dip that was here, and we could be in the very first part of that with what we're seeing right here as this first up leg. This is the monthly chart, so I mean, you have to zoom out to really see it. But yeah, you get your year-long dip. It chopped around. It did go up early, but a lot of that was because of the ETF news. Back in 2019, when it went up that first leg, it did take some time off and consolidated sideways for quite some time. So I think, this is our up leg. This is our consolidation. This honestly looks like the start of the run up. So I think this is where we're at back here.
Yeah,
where we're at here. So that's the correlation that I'm seeing with it anyway. But yeah, so you mentioned Ethereum, the ratio is still garbage, 0.030. Just kind of a sideways down.
Yeah,
because
not looking great.
No, it's not looking bullish at all. However, like I said, once this does change and turn around because of the pairing and the liquidity, it's going to come around. Now, will we see that 20,000? Does it have enough strength to do that? Well, I don't know, because you mentioned it a few minutes ago. Things have kind of, Solana has almost taken over that side role. I mean, I don't know, and I didn't look how much Bitcoin is paired with Solana as far as trading pairs. I would guess not near as much as it is with Ethereum, but I could be wrong. That would be something that I would probably need to look into as far as liquidity pairing goes between the two of those. Look, Solana's just been stronger with the meme coins, and we've made that. Well, we haven't made it known, but a lot of people have, and this has been a meme cycle. The early on in the first part of the run has been memes. So Solana is a lot cheaper to navigate. People kind of maybe got scared off from Ethereum last cycle too, with all the fees, the high fees, the times that it was just not feasible to even do a transaction because it costs so much. So I think that possibly hurt them, and there are people that are a little gun shy to get back into it. So
yeah, I think so too, about the fees for sure. When if you're somebody trying to just throw a lotto ticket in and get it and have a a meme coin, you don't want to do it on Ethereum. Like, I mean, yeah, you might, to swap it might be like $10 to $15 right now, or like on the weekend at night or something like that. Yeah. But try that in later on in the bull market, you're gonna have a bad time, to quote South Park. Yeah, I mean, if that ETH ratio stays so porous, I mean, who knows? We may be looking at a cycle where we want Bitcoin well over 200K to see ETH get to 20K. Not that we need Ethereum to get to 20K. I mean, I know people have called about that number. I don't think that that's necessary. Depends on, I mean, what are your goals? You know what I mean? I mean, I think
Right.
Ethereum, even at 10K, while that would be horrible, like way underachieving, not what anybody expected and not great, people would still benefit from it,
Yeah.
even if that bad of a, target.
Well, the big part of that too is the wallet watchers who want a certain wallet to get sizable increase so that it can then rotate into PulseChain.
Right.
Unfortunately, whether it does or not, we have no say in how that happens. Unfortunately, so it doesn't really matter if it does or not. I agree with you, though. I mean, I think somewhere between 15 to 20 is probably feasible, even with where we're at now. Just because we haven't had a major run up, it doesn't mean that it can't take off. We've seen these type of moves when you look at the Ethereum chart back in 2017, how from January, January to January, basically 1 year, it just shot up.
Yeah.
The next run, April to basically November.
Yep.
So April of 20, so there is time. There's just a little bit more sideways going on. I think the markets are changing a little bit, but they still have a lot in common. I think once this is over, we'll see another pattern play out, be like, oh yeah, that was this, this move here was this move here, or something along those lines.
I hear you.
So
so we'll continue to watch out for ETH. Hopefully it does recover here soon, but I mean, it can't get much worse. I mean, people that are like fading it hardcore right now, I mean, it's usually going to be the mid-curve people that are just like big Twitter accounts that are just looking for engagement. So keep that in mind. Hey, shout out Side of Spirit. He onboarded someone this week and directed them straight to us. Keep it up. We appreciate that, man. Thank you. And good on you for helping somebody else get into real DeFi. And, like we talked about with Frank Molina last week, onboarding people, personally is one thing. And then there's also, like, we were talking about, had that big advertising conversation, and really word of mouth and people just talking about their own experiences and stuff is the best advertising. So him just like watching our content or other people, that you want to direct him to, I think is probably the best thing. So shout out.
Well, and the one thing we do here is we try to keep it as even keel as possible. I think we do get a lot of comments about that, about how even we stay throughout the markets. We've been here the whole time through the whole bear market, and I think that's why a lot of people kept tuning in, is because you've got to have that somewhat even personality to manage through it successfully. Otherwise, you start reading a lot of stuff online, and it gets to be a lot on the psyche. So
yeah, and you will find out. And thank you again, sir. You will find out that the longer that you're around, not just PulseChain but crypto in general, like, you will see the people who are like the fly by night, fair weather fans of crypto and PulseChain, and the people that actually stay around. So, and I understand people like getting tired of it at some point, maybe stopping streaming, or like Hexo taking a break when he did and stuff. But anyway, you'll see the front runners when they're out.
Well, there's a difference. There's a difference between us doing it once a week and someone doing it every single day, right? I mean, you run out of things to talk to. It gets kind of old. You're just kind of clicking in just for the views and the comments. Otherwise, we could sit here and read through every single comment and interact with the our followers and things like that. But what are the idea is to learn something a little bit and try and give news that maybe they're not finding somewhere else.
Yeah. Amen. Well, let's move on to the PulseChain ecosystem. We are continuing to kind of consolidate in the area that we have been, about 50% off of SAC rate, or you would say 00, or 4 zeros and a 517 here at the moment for Pulse. It is moving up a little bit over the last couple hours. This week, it's really just stayed in this range here. PulseX at 4 zeros and a 356. Inc at $1.85. Hex is at 1.4 cents, and eHex at 0029 essentially. So continuing to hang out in this zone. PulseX, obviously, we know continues to look super strong against Pulse. And if you want to just look at the Pulse chart, Ewok, we can kind of take a look at that real quick and just see where we're at. I think the most interesting thing tonight is to get to the, actual kind of I mean, we can look at the technical chart, obviously, and that's going to be what it is. But I'm really interested in some of the fundamental stuff just behind what is going on with Trump, the SEC stuff, and how it could relate to, the case against Richard Hart. But yeah, what do you make of where we're at with Pulse right now? Because I mean, we still have been continuing to come up. I mean, it's not always been pretty here, but that still looks pretty good when you do it on a weekly like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to zoom out. Otherwise, you start looking at the hourly charts and it's just a bunch of sideways. Every time it goes up, it looks like it sells, right? You get this big FUD candles here, and then it just seems to this happens in a couple days or one day. This was actually, if you look at the daily, that was pretty much one candle. And then it's just so hard to fight to get back even to where it was before that. So that's why if you look at, more of a weekly time frame, you'll see that there are gains being made from these dips. It does take time. And unfortunately, when massive people get out like that, it does make it a little bit lighter. So the way up shouldn't be quite as hard as what it appears to be. We just have to get out and tell more people about it. So, I mean, we're looking strong. Again, making higher lows as far as this goes, a stair step. That's what you're kind of looking for. As long as we're not making any of these major big candles. Yes, some sell-offs are, again, I always say this, they're healthy, but as long as it doesn't break the previous levels, it definitely helps to go up when it's that time.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've looked pretty strong recently, and it's good to see after some of this recovery. So, of course, Pulse did dip down a little bit with the rest of the market whenever we got the terrifying news about DeepSeek. But yeah, I think things are looking good. We're chilling out in this zone. It feels like maybe a calm before a storm here. And yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, we could be on the precipice. Yesterday, I DM'd you, Ewok, and Twitter was littered with a whole bunch of people saying, like, oh, I smell it in the air. It seems like the case is going to get dismissed and everything because there was big money moving. We saw that. There's a big wallet that hadn't been engaged in some time that moved over $1 million and was buying up Pulse and PulseX and PDI and all these different things. And we've seen that, for a while, and it could seem that news is imminent. But as we're going to get to here in a moment, I don't know that anybody has any news that the actual judgment is about to come out. I think it's just that with this taking this long, it's likely good news, at this point, which is what we're going to cover. So,
you want to read your super chat there? Wow.
Yeah, DJ and Moonboy. Yeah, for Jake putting in the heart. Oh, look at that! Shout out, Take a Break with Jake. He is the producer in the background. We got a $20 super chat from DJ Moonboy for Jake putting in the hard work. Down in the trenches, keep it up, sir. Loved your vid. Oh yeah, he's got his own channel, so yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, but appreciate you producing the show, Jake, for sure. So shout out. Yeah. Anyway, we'll let those guys discuss in the comments.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you get a lot of people sensing something, and I know Nuclear Herbs has always said, on average, you get a response in about 90 days. Well, this is a little bit different of a scenario, I think, because of the administration change, because of the changing of the guard at the SEC. Now they're talking about, throwing a lot of this stuff out. Like, let's get rid of it. Let's start from scratch. Let's define what we're actually doing here. Let's define what we're looking for. And that way, this isn't a rule by enforcement, more of a, when there's issues, we need to bring them up and address them quickly. They have more time, they have more resources to do that. People, saying I have inside information that this is going to happen on this day. Well, they don't really. I mean, unless Auntie Carol is really their auntie, they don't know. And I doubt she's probably told.
You don't think she's Nagabo's aunt?
I don't think so.
He's back. I don't know if he was gone.
Something
or what,
tells me they're not related.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, just a thought.
Distant cousins, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did see Naga was back. I saw the magic crystal ball, whatever it was. Something. I didn't even read the post. I just saw there was something there. So
yeah.
You're going to get a lot of those people. We just talked about that. You're going to get a lot of these people that are Fairweather fans that are going to be coming back. Just kind of proceed with a little bit of caution on what they're trying to push.
Yeah. Silvertooth getting back in at the top could be interesting. I wonder if he'll make a return. I don't know. Is that who I'm talking about? Yeah, the guy that
Yeah.
grows weed now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I don't know what he does, but
that's
he sold the bottom a couple times, hasn't he?
he's done some questionable stuff, but
Yeah.
I think he's happy with his weed business. So
That's all that
that's
matters.
yeah, good for him. So that's where we're at with the PulseChain prices. We're going to get into a whole bunch of news now. So let's get into the stuff of last week. If you guys are here enjoying the show, do us a favor, peg that like button, peg it to $1. We appreciate you being here. Let's check in on the poll question. When will there be a dismissal decision on the SEC and PulseChain case? Leading still at 37% is literally by the end of this week. Most of you think within the next 48 hours, we're going to have a decision on the motion to dismiss hearing. Just about tied for that is by the end of February at 34%. Later in 2025 gets 29%, and then nobody's voted on the March April option. So relatively split there so far. So
Yeah.
with the news from Trump last week, so crypto executive order, that was the biggest thing that he really issued. If you want to, so the best one for that is going to be the tweet I sent you from Eleanor Tourette syndrome. But this is huge news. I mean, she kind of details what all is in the executive order, and a lot of it has to do with some of the things that the SEC has to do and new compliances here. So this is a big breakdown of it here from Miss Tourette syndrome. So new, per my Fox Business colleague, okay, I don't need to read that. So here's the details of the executive order. It establishes the Presidential Working Group on Digital Asset Markets to strengthen U.S. leadership in digital finance. The working group will be tasked with developing a federal regulatory framework governing digital assets, including stablecoins, evaluating the creation of strategic national digital assets stockpile, which we've heard about. The working group will be chaired by the White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, who's been saying a lot of bullish stuff, and include the Secretary of the Treasury, the Chairman of the SEC, and the heads of other relevant departments. The White House AI and crypto czar will engage leading experts in digital assets and digital markets to ensure that the actions of the working group are informed by expertise beyond the federal government. The executive order directs departments and agencies with identifying and making recommendations to the working group on any regulations and other agency actions affecting the digital assets sector that should be rescinded or modified. The EO prohibits agencies from undertaking any action to establish, this might be the biggest thing, issue or promote central bank digital currencies. So prohibiting CBDCs for now. Anyway, and then finally revokes the previous administration's digital assets executive order and the Treasury Department's framework for international engagement on digital assets, which suppressed innovation and undermined U.S. economic liberty and global leadership in digital finance. So a lot to take in there, a lot of just kind of word salads also, but universally good. And there is some other further breakdowns about this out there. I think there's another tweet I sent you with like kind of the highlighted part of it that the way it reads would basically sound like that the RH case should just basically be over, or any of these SEC cases that they've filed in the last couple of years. But just based on this framework we've seen right here from Eleanor, what do you make of this? I mean, the CBDC thing is huge. I still think that's going to be coming down the pipeline. Anywhere the government can try to take advantage of its citizens, they're usually going to try to do it. But what do you make of this? Just good stuff.
Yeah. So the thing with CBDCs that we still have to be careful of is the fact that USDC can still be controlled, right? We know they can turn it on, turn it off, invalidate a lot of coins. So just because they say, they want to prohibit the CBDCs, be careful, because, until we get a true decentralized stablecoin, which, we may have soon, you still have to take that into account. As far as all the other stuff goes, it's basically saying Operation Choke Point 2.0 is no longer. That's essentially what all of this says and sums up in 5 words. It is good. Now, will they start throwing cases out? I don't know. I don't know what the procedure is as far as that goes. If things have already been started and they're underway, what is the history of them just either pausing it or saying, we're not even going to look at this because of the new administration, because of the new rules, the new regulatory framework that's there. It's really hard to know what they're thinking, and and how they're going to move forward with it. We can all hope that that's what happens, but I think I was thinking the other day, I was like, well, so if it does get thrown out, the one thing that we don't get is any kind of clarity, right? We don't get any kind of judgment in our favor to kind of throw back at all these naysayers that say Richard's a scammer, Richard, we don't get that. All we get is a case that is thrown out, and then they come back and they say, well, it's all because the president changed and the SEC changed over. There's really been no ruling. So it's always going to be something, right? It's
okay. So, and I hate to interrupt you, but if it has to do with this, so you're right. This, what I was going to say back is it is always going to be something, which means to me, he could have his day in court. He could win on all counts in the fashion that XRP did, where the judge is basically like, hey, bitch slap you, SEC. This is the end of the case with prejudice and all this stuff. And they'd still be like, well, the guy's out here wearing these clothes and he's got the diamond and he's a scammer. It's not going to matter. I mean, their minds are made up. They're fucking idiots. I mean, that's just what they do,
Yep, exactly. And that was, the next point I was going to make. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be something. So let's throw it out. Let's get rid of it. I mean, when hopefully we can move up. They've done enough damage already. I mean, you can show it in the charts of where all this has kind of led us. If anything, I think it will be beneficial for the people that are investors to be able to move forward. So let's hope for that, because again, my point was that there's always going to be something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like I think I sent you another tweet that does have a highlight in it. It was from a Hexagon who tweeted it, but there's a highlighted I know I sent you a ton of shit, but there's a highlighted portion of the document of the executive order that they're basically saying, would this not basically negate the lawsuit if this were true, if you are able to find it? If not,
yeah, I think it's this one.
Let me see. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Geez, I can barely see that. Protecting and promoting. So part of the executive order says protecting and promoting the ability of individual citizens and private sector entities alike to access and use the lawful purposes open public blockchain networks without yeah, this is it, because RH tweeted about this. Without persecution, including the ability to develop and deploy software, to participate in mining and validating, to transact with other persons without unlawful censorship, and to maintain self-custody of digital assets. I mean, yeah, that right there, is basically describing exactly what the SEC should be allowing to happen now. The curious thing about this is, and I know Nuclear Herbs has weighed on this a bit, is this. We're grandfathered in, like all these other lawsuits. So we already got the last corrupt administration's lawsuit in our hands, and we have a judge who's dutifully doing her job, like looking over the case that she heard about the motion to dismiss hearing and trying to render a judgment. But with all of these things happening, and I didn't mention this yet because there's just so much news, but we just found out tomorrow, Thursday the 30th at 2 p.m., the SEC has a closed door meeting. And they're going to be discussing. Oh, you got that? Look at that! You're a wizard. You're
a wizard, Harry.
Yeah, the closed door meeting tomorrow, where the SEC will be discussing the resolution of litigation claims and other related topics. That sounds like a great phrase: resolution of litigation claims. So they're going to be talking about that. There's no way I can read whatever's in that red box right there. I don't know if you can from your screen.
Sure. It says the subject matter of the closed meeting will consist of the following topics: institution and settlement of injunctive actions, institution and settlement of administrative proceedings, resolution of litigation claims, and other matters relating to examinations and enforcement proceedings. So it sounds like the things that are happening now are going to be addressed tomorrow. 2 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday. It is an online thing. Meeting is closed to the public. So it sounds like they're going to be talking about what resolution, if any, litigation claims, which I believe there is a claim for some litigation in ours. Yeah, so hopefully this goes well, and we hear something, and maybe that's why so many people are voting by the end of the week.
It could be. I would, just knowing how these things go and how much we've experienced ourselves already, I can't imagine we're going to get any kind of good or big concrete piece of news out of this, at least for a few days. You know what I
Right.
mean? I mean, it's great this is happening tomorrow, but that late in the afternoon, next day's Friday. Nobody's doing anything that day, probably. I mean, I don't know. I figured that it's probably going to into next week. Maybe we'll hear whatever this is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll get something right away. But the fact that discussion is taking place, I mean, you can tell that this is just a lot of stuff dropping in a lot of people's laps very fast. Like, we knew that Trump was going to enact better crypto policy for this country, and it's happening at breakneck speed. So all these things, these dominoes just have to fall into place. So that kind of goes back to the thing, like, could Judge Carroll just be waiting for some of this stuff to happen? Because is it pointless for her to put out some kind of ruling, especially if the ruling, and whether or not anybody wants to hear this, it is likely that this was the most probable ruling, is that not the whole thing is dismissed. Maybe just part of it is, and the rest of it was moving forward. I am certain, as well as Richard, obviously, Richard's attorneys, don't really want to spend 2025 and more court dates with this. The new SEC, but if you're looking at Hester Pierce's tweets and stuff, I don't think she thinks they should be doing that either. So if you're Judge Carroll, why would you want to render a ruling that may very well be that they're, in 90 days is the next court date to, do whatever this time?
Yeah.
When it could just fall away,
Exactly. And why take the time to write up it? They are very considerate and thoughtful, and when they write their response to the court, sometimes 20, 30 pages of information and findings and case law. And yeah, why spend the time doing that when, she's probably well aware of all of this stuff that's going on. I think probably waiting for some clarification. If we're going to decide what's what, let's do it so I can make my decisions moving forward and either clear my books or continue a case. But we need some sort of clarification before we continue these cases, because otherwise it gets appealed in 6 or 8 months because things get changed, and then you're back in the same spot, right? Let's not waste taxpayer money here. Let's figure out what we're doing first, and then we can make some rulings and decisions.
Yeah, I think so too. It definitely an unenviable position maybe for Carroll to be in, I'm sure. But it's an interesting time. But if it were me and I had the ability, I would rather just wait for, like, all right, what are you guys doing now? What's the plan? Are you even interested in this lawsuit anymore? Because I don't want to hand out anything. Yeah. But what I'm sure she's also considering for both parties' accounts, probably, honestly, she's probably even thinking more so of RH's side in this, is like, there's a guy out there paying millions of dollars for these attorneys, and these people are working. The SEC, I mean, they're the SEC, they're the organization. So you don't want to keep parties just hanging forever. And that's why, even though the 60 to 90 days by Herbs was never any kind, like, that's not a definitive window or deadline or anything. That is generally how long it takes. And she probably doesn't want to let it go too far beyond that,
Yeah, that would be my guess too. And you're right. You don't want, I mean, you've got retainers already. I'm sure they're only billing for active hours. I'm sure this is not the only case they're working on. We know they're supporting Trump administration. We know they're involved with some other things as well. So with the Elon as well. So, this isn't the only case they're working on, and you do get billed for, billable hours. How much of that is happening right now? Probably not a whole lot. They're doing the waiting game, but I'm sure they're also doing research on a lot of this stuff too, seeing what's happened, seeing what's coming out, so that they can use it in their favor if there is a case that continues.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm with you. Very, very interesting. Just it's at least we're getting this entertainment. If prices aren't going up yet, at least we're getting some, good fundamental stuff happening on the crypto front here in the U.S. And then we had a couple other pieces of things, and we've kind of gone on with this for a while now. But also, the SEC launches a crypto task force that is led by Hester Pierce. We can kind of cover this pretty quickly. I think I sent you a tweet on that too. I think maybe I didn't. I don't know. I may not have. I don't know. We could just kind of group this in with what we're talking about. But yeah, Hester Pierce. I mean, she's long been. People call her crypto mom. She's long been, the person within the SEC that actually seemed like a reasonable person, even under Gary Gensler running that ship. So there may not be one. So don't worry about it.
I don't see a tweet.
So yeah, they launched a task force led by her, and then also, which there is a tweet on this I sent you, the Senate voted last week on Senator Loomis, and she tweeted out something early in the morning like, "Hey, major decision regarding cryptocurrency coming this afternoon," or somebody did, and everybody's like, "Holy shit, what is this going to be?" And then it was just that Senator Loomis is the head of the Digital Asset Committee, which wasn't as big a piece of news as people thought, but that's one branch of the executive order that we just looked at from Trump that is going to be all meeting together. It sounded like this branch, as well as the SEC and everything that David Sachs is leading up. He's the AI and crypto czar. So is that the
this is the post from Loomis. Yeah, basically, she says it right there: eradicate Operation Choke Point 2.0.
There you go.
Make America the Bitcoin and digital asset capital of the world. Pass legislation promoting responsible innovation and consumer protection.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically the same stuff. It's just that Trump and everybody, they're kind of appointing people into these other groups. And just the fact that we have this many groups dedicated to furthering cryptocurrency within the U.S., keeping innovation here, stop, actively trying to fight it because you're just a corrupt person that wants your own dollar bill to continue to go up in value, like Elizabeth Warren, who I don't know if you saw was doing her little voice crackling grandma, really, I'm a nice old grandma act to RFK today.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh man, she is the most insufferable person in our government. Now that we don't see Kamala, we'll never see Kamala again. So, yeah.
Well, it's just, I find it very ironic when, her line of questioning was, will you promise that you will never make money while you're in office and 4 years after from suing any of these drug companies or whatever? And I was so hoping that he would say, Senator, how much money do you make from these drug companies while you're a senator? Because they've greased the palms, and so but obviously he's in a confirmation hearing, can't say things like that. Would probably not fare so well for the result, but I wanted him to get down that road because we know how crooked she is and how much money she takes. Look at her net worth. Look at her investments. Almost as bad as the other one.
Pelosi. Yeah. These old ladies, they know how to get around with their cash. So yeah. But that was her today. A couple other things we can touch on just real quick, and then get to some more meaty stuff here before we finish out the show. Some big news that some of this is a little bit misrepresented. But one thing, Ross Ulbricht gets out of prison, obviously, last week, gets pardoned by Trump. I mean, just a huge thing. And honestly, I'm astonished that Trump went to the lengths to do that. I mean, I don't know how difficult of a thing that is to do. It's probably not. But I just mean, future presidents usually give you this pie in the sky shit, all these things they're going to do, and none of it ever really comes true. I can't believe that something as quote unquote little out of all the things that he has to deal with right away as pardoning Ross Ulbricht would make his list and get done on day 2, but it did. And Ross got out of prison after, and obviously if you guys are new to this or don't know the saga, he basically ran the website Silk Road back in the day. I don't know what year that would have been, like 2011 or something. Yep. Where yes, I mean, people bought and sold goods that they wanted to buy on there, but he wasn't the one actually selling any of the drugs or whatever else it was on there. And he basically was serving life in prison for years unjustly, and just amazing.
2 life terms plus 40 years was his sentence for creating a website. This goes back to the the same thing with here. Let's pull this one up too with the Roman Storm. One of the founders of Tornado Cash. You're in the same boat. You've got these guys creating open source software. Maybe Silk Road was not open source, but it was creating software for other people to use, and they're the ones that are being charged because they feel that it's being used to do whatever.
Yeah. And he actually clarifies this here. So the Tornado Cash thing is obviously like a mixer, and with the SEC and actually I think it was the DOJ that cracked down on him last year. I mean, that was one that was concerning if they're coming after like mixers and things like that. And Roman Storm did just kind of elaborate on this a bit. So he's the one that actually heads up Tornado Cash. He said, I'm being prosecuted for writing open source code that enables private crypto transactions in a completely non-custodial manner. This prosecution represents a terrifying criminalization of privacy. The charges against me threaten to criminalize software development itself. If successful, the implications could extend far beyond the crypto industry, impacting every software developer. I face up to 45 years in prison on charges including operating an unlicensed money transmitting business, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and sanctions evasion. This case has already had a chilling effect. Recently, a developer filed a lawsuit against the DOJ seeking relief because the case has made them fearful of releasing new software. That's the terrible thing, is the chilling effect that he's describing. I don't want to go and read the rest of it because we have so much to cover. But sure. That I'm glad that he came out and clarified that, though, because some news came out that some of that policy was being turned around in a Texas court and stuff. But he's still in the position that he's in and hurting, So
yeah. Well, I find this interesting where the Fifth Circuit Court has already ruled that Tornado Cash sanctions were unlawful. However, the DOJ has dismissed this ruling as irrelevant. Like, how do they make it irrelevant? It's a court ruling, right? I mean, so anyway, his trial's on April 14th of this year.
Yeah, so we'll hope for good things there. I mean, everything has been going good with this crypto policy, but that is one for sure that's in the balance that really sucks. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on that story for sure. Okay, so that's just some of the more bullish things that Trump has done here in his first couple of weeks. I do want to, there's one part of this that I didn't mention, and to get more back into the PulseChain focus of everything. So we just went and talked a whole bunch about, like, whether Judge Carroll has to come and actually dismiss part of the case or anything, or if the SEC would just be lifting it based on Trump's new policy or whatever. I would argue, and I know you and I have had this conversation many, many times, but I wonder, let's say that we don't really get any news on this anytime soon, and maybe we are just waiting on this new policy, and in another 60 to 90 days, it's like, oh, okay, the SEC is no longer going to be pursuing these things. This case is being lifted or paused for now, and it's just hanging out there in the ether, no pun intended. Do you think maybe we don't get that? And this was always a short-term thing that I've never been like super think it would go super crazy price-wise anyway. But do you think we then are neglected that like potential motion to dismiss pump, that you and I have argued at a million times, that, I think like we could do it like a 2x immediately, like in a day. You talked about doing a 10x before, I think you said. But could we be denied that short-term burst of a potential great piece of news like that if this just kind of slowly fizzles out? And is that even really that important? Because I think what we really need is just Ethereum to start moving so all coins can start to go up more. Yeah. I really don't think the SEC thing is that important. Like, it's good to see things fall by the wayside, but in terms of us really going up in earnest, it's more the market playing out, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's unimportant, and I don't think it slowly fizzles. You're going to get a ruling, right? They're not going to just say, oh, we forgot about this. So you are going to get something, whether it be even Richard coming out and saying, just talk to my lawyers, here's the deal. I think that could spark it. You know what I mean? So I don't think we miss anything. I do think, however, it's not going to come from the courts. You're not going to see a tweet from the SEC or the courts or anything like that about it.
Right.
You're going to see something from probably Richard himself, because he will confer with his lawyers, get the news, and then he'll be the one to publish it and let us know what's going on. Once that happens, I do see still a pretty immediate 5 to 10x. And I don't know that, not within a day, but within a few days, within a week at least, you're going to see massive influx because people are no longer on the sidelines. They're not waiting. I mean, it'll trust me. I trust me, bro.
Okay, source, trust me, bro.
Yep,
okay,
that's my source.
Okay, that's the end of the discussion. I mean, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But here's the thing: it's really a stupid argument, I guess, that we even have, because it's all short term. Like, there's going to be a destination that we end up at this cycle, and I think that that's the destination, whether we do a 2 or 5x within the first few days after the case could be dismissed or not. Whatever it is. So, the long term is really the most important thing. But yeah. I know what you just said is very interesting, that we could hear it actually from RH. I think that's very possible that
where else would we hear it, right? Where else?
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to broadcast it? He's going to get the news first. Where else would it come from?
Yeah. And that leads me to a final follow-up point on this, because I saw somebody tweet this today. And they were like, with these new things that Trump is enacting, even though we haven't seen them fully come to pass yet, and the SEC hasn't totally reformed and all these things, like, they were basically saying, why isn't Richard Hart just streaming now? Like, just stream now, talk now if you want to talk now. He put out the audio obviously on Christmas Eve and was, didn't have any issues. I mean, he didn't misstep or say anything that he didn't want to say or anything like that. What do you think that is a valid statement or not, and why?
No. Because it's not over. It is not over. I mean, and this has not been dismissed yet. I'm sure his lawyers are well aware of that. And once he gets the go ahead, believe me, he will do what it takes. He wants to win as much as we do, if not more. He's got a lot of time, energy invested in this as well. He wants to get that glory. So don't think that for a minute he's just going to disappear like Satoshi did. That's not his style. It never has been. He will be out there. I know DGen Moonboy said that. I think he meant we should be lobbying to get him on the show first, but he's going to be going out there to people that have 1 million followers, trying to get on those and saying how, listen, I was right all along. I've been this, I'm being dragged through the mud, just like all these other guys. I've got Interpol looking for me. All of these persecutions like Roger Vere's going through, we're seeing how that's all playing out. He's got a good story to tell. Excuse me. And, he's dealing with a lot of the same things. John McAfee went through a lot of the same things. Now it's Roger Ver, Richard Hart, a lot. It is a very compelling story. So I do believe that once he is allowed, he's going to be very vocal. Now, as far as the Interpol stuff goes, how can you, obviously you don't want people tracking you down either by location, based on streams or where it's coming from. So, there's that aspect of it as well. But I do see a lot of this going away. Maybe he even heads to the United States.
I don't know.
Because, well, they're lessening a lot of the penalties of it as it is right now. So, that's just a total speculation. But I think that would be the only reason that he wouldn't stream until that other stuff gets cleared up as well.
Well, and my opinion with it is, it kind of goes right in line with, when will we really pump? Not really if the case is dismissed, but when Ethereum goes up. I think that kind of is the same thing with RH wanting to stream. Like, obviously, you want to be in the most bullish environment you can when you're doing that. And, he purposefully has been, I'm not going to say absent. I mean, there's people, oh, he's on the run. He left. He's never coming back and all this stuff, which obviously wasn't true. But there's, when things are going well, that's when you want to be promoting, obviously, and when things were going poorly, it's kind of when he was a little bit more quiet and things like that to get the people that are eventually going to sell anyway, just out of the market as soon as you can, as low as you can. So they're gone, and then again, when things rally, we haven't seen Ethereum even get really near new all-time highs. I mean, it's been near 4K, but that's pretty much it. It hasn't really threatened new all-time highs yet. So I think that's what we need to see first before a lot of these things start to happen, and we're just not there yet. So
completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of RH, let's look at his tweet last week. So he tweeted last Thursday about PDI and showing the chart again to ETH holders. Now, this marks like the 5th or 6th time that he has shown that chart and talked about how many X's it has done. I think this tweet was probably the most explicit he's been, where he literally described what the chart is. Sometimes he'll just be like, hey, check this out, pretty neat, or whatever. Or like, hey, Ethereum bros, check this coin out. Or this one, he if I recall, and I know I sent it to you. Yeah, he actually described what it was. So he says, this coin is up, oh boy, that's a big number, 2,792,622,851% in 547 days. Ethereum, you might have some of this free coin waiting for you, but few people know about it, which I'd say is proof y'all could benefit from doing some marketing. This is the free DAI on PulseChain. Insane gains are cooler when people know about them. There's so many angles to this that I want to pick your brain on. We kind of got at a DM fight about it, I think, a little bit last week, but he's talking about how many X's it's done. Overall, he's been tweeting a ton lately about this, about PDI, there was another tweet last week where I think he did it twice, tweeted a whole bunch of PRC20 copies and how much they've been up in the past couple of weeks. So I guess let's start here because there's so many angles I want to approach this at. So in terms of when he's talking about advertising, who is he specifically? Is he talking about our community and stuff for people not talking about it enough? Because I think a good portion of us do, but at the same time, there are a good bit who I just don't know if we're having the same conversation here. Because when I tried to talk to you about this last week, you were saying that, well, he's just advertising that people have these copies and to come get them. And basically these people are going to just come and dump them or whatever. I don't know that that's the case with PDI. Obviously, that's a little bit different. But is he just advertising, hey, you guys have free coins, or also should we be advertising and talking about what is happening with PDI here? Because a lot of people are doing that as well, but there's also a lot of people who somehow still are like, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. What are you guys talking about? That has nothing to do with anything. What direction do you think he's meaning by this with the marketing here?
Well, so his last sentence, insane gains are cooler when people know about them. He is, in my opinion, getting people over to PulseChain. You've got to start somewhere, right? You've got to get people on the chain. And I think he's telling Ethereum, you might have, some of this free coin waiting for you. And I hear so many people say, well, they didn't make those percent gains. Well, they sure did if they got them for free, because it essentially started at zero. How low can you go, right? It started at zero. And now you're up to a penny. So yeah, anybody that had DAI at that point when the fork happened in March, they got free stuff. So I think what he's doing is telling us, proof that you all could benefit from marketing. He wants us to get to the Ethereum people and say, guys, you've got free stuff over here. There's a lot of tokens. You've got to find ways to get people into the chain. You got to get them over here. You got to get them active. That's when they discover other things. They find the PulseX, they find the Hex, they find some cool meme coins, like whatever you're interested in. They get to use the chain. They get to see that it works. It works wonders. It is faster than Ethereum. So there's a lot of good things about telling people, hey, you got free stuff. You're onboarding. That's what you're doing. That's why when Hex launched, he gave it to the Bitcoin holders, right? You always want to incentivize another community that they have free stuff. Hey, you got some free stuff over here. Come and get it. And a percentage of them will stay. Some of them will sell and leave and never come back. And that is part of the growth curve that you've got to go through. But the more you can market it to people and tell them that they've got free things over here, the more of them may stay and stick around and do other things. So that's my opinion of why he was saying what he was saying.
Yeah. And I do think because, the biggest thing was the world's largest airdrop. That was going to be the big advertising thing at the beginning. And it seemed like that just didn't really work for a while to get people to come over. And do you think that's because, we launched in May of 2023? Nobody, many less people were around this space at the time. Things were still dead and horrible for quite a while. I mean, for almost another year anyway. So do you think that that's really just why? And how much, I mean, when he does these tweets, especially the PDI tweets, like how much of it do you think is just like, hey, you have copies over here versus like, I'm trying to tell you that something is going on with this stable coin on PulseChain? Because he's tweeted specifically about that a number of times, more than any of the other ones, and about the PWBTC a number of times, which it also looks like something's going on with. So,
and you got to look at the gains, right? I mean, charts that look like this are going to get your attention. Mm-hmm. Something that's only up 100x may not, but you look at a 2 billion%, 2 million x. Essentially is what you're getting at here, right? 2 or 27 million x. I think that's you move it over 2 places, and that's your x's. So this is going to get someone's attention a lot more than saying, "Hey, you have a copy of whatever, some maker, whatever, any random token." Mm-hmm. It hasn't done these type of gains. Then once people get in and look at it, maybe there is more, maybe there is hidden meaning to it, but we can't, I mean, I don't ever infer that, he will come out and say, hey, I'm behind this, by the way.
Yeah. I don't think that'll ever happen. Honestly.
We're going to make this stable coin peg, because then you do have those big institutions that have exchanges or whatever that may have a bunch, and they just continue to dump the price. Defeating the purpose. But that's one of the things that Richard has always done too, is to get people out near bottoms before anything big happens. So I think that's why we want to market this now, before it does get up any higher. If you do believe in PDI to $1, you want to advertise the shit out of it now, so that people that do want to sell can take their profits and go, and make it more likely to go higher, because the people that are involved then, will be in tune with what we want to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think continuing to show that chart is going to be good. And I think eventually we will see that. And I mean, it's funny too, because how many times in the last couple of weeks when, again, everybody's been capitulating on Ethereum and ditching it and blah, 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 blah. And we're now literally seeing people like the big time know nothing, large follower Twitter accounts saying things like, can we just fork Ethereum? Like at this point, like this thing's a failure. Can we fork it? Like literally not even knowing that it's been done. And then if they do find out that it's been done, then it's like, oh, well, he's a scammer. And that's not, they don't even know what they're talking about.
Right.
But how great is it though, even though right now they're kind of mid-curving it like that, how great is it though that eventually they're calling for that now, and eventually they could kind of be forced over at some point, or whatever word you want to use, coerced over or influenced over. And then, well, he's still a scammer, but I just came over to get these tokens.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, movement is movement, and users are users. They find something. People say one thing and do others. Just because they may say he's a scammer and I don't trust that, they could easily figure out that they've got stuff over here and come play in the playground. They don't have to announce it to anybody. So
true.
that still helps the PulseX, the buy and burn. It still helps active users, validators, things like that. So just because they say one thing, it doesn't always mean. You got to really watch what people do and not really what they say. If we see user counts going up, I have a feeling that's what's happening, is people are discovering things. One of the reasons I think that the world's largest airdrop didn't have the effect that we thought it may is because you had that ETHW happen and ETH Fair. Both of those were also very similar, right? I mean, they had airdrops as well. They just didn't get the adoption. They didn't have a community behind them, essentially. So I think that kind of, I don't want to say it fizzled on that, but I think maybe that's why, because it kind of already did happen once. And then PulseChain did it again, but with some cooler features and other protocols and a much bigger community behind it. So,
yeah. Well, I do find it interesting that we do have all those ETH pros now calling for a fork of Ethereum when it's already happening. We have, large megaphones and everybody's talking about it over here now. So we are advertising. We've been talking about it. And again, like we talked about with Frank last week, we had that huge conversation about advertising and what works and all that. And just the mind share and creating content like this and always talking about it and sharing experiences, I think is really number one. I mean, Frank himself talked about how he really fell upon Hex by that. Like he was looking into DeFi and stuff, and he found a whole bunch of Hex stuff on YouTube. So we're here, we're doing it every single day, and everybody else that cares enough is doing it too. And if you're out there and you have the ability to do this, if you think that you have nothing to offer, you very well may, and you just need to pick up a microphone and try it out. That's what you got to do. So, okay, let's finish off with these couple of things. So we got more cool stuff happening in terms of onboarding for PulseChain. So Brother KG of Internet Money Wallet fame has been awesome for quite some time. We had him on the show one time to talk about Internet Money, of course, and he's been innovating so many different things for this chain, and we've got some more onboarding stuff coming for Internet Money, where Pulse and other tokens you can now buy on your phone with a debit card. And there's the tweet. Maybe I should just actually read it instead of my notes. So major announcement, you can now buy PulseChain and 21 other blockchains directly on Android, iOS, and Chrome with your debit, credit card, bank account, and Google Apple Pay. Some users will even be able to buy crypto directly with no KYC. I imagine that has to do with maybe where you live. I'm not sure. 43 currencies, and 170 plus countries currently supported. We have additional on-ramp options coming soon for those not currently supported. It's our mission to make PulseChain more easily accessible and smoother to navigate. This is a big step forward for PulseChain, and stay tuned for more updates. So this is very, very good if you are somebody who, when the news of the case being dismissed or news of the SEC dropping everything or whatever it may be, something happens, Ethereum finally decides, you know what, I'm going to get out of bed today and go up for once. There is going to be a time where at breakneck speed, PulseChain starts to move up. And we've thought we had it coming a couple of times, and it does happen. And when it happens, there is going to be a time where the train isn't coming back to the station for a little while. So this may benefit you if you are somebody who has a card that you would rather purchase with. Now, disclaimer, and I don't know them off the top of my head, and maybe you can speculate too, Ewok, but typically from our experience, and maybe yours too, if you are using a card of some type, especially a credit card, you're going to pay somewhat heftier fees than you would under most other circumstances. That said, again, sometimes people want to get in quick. Sometimes people want to do things with leverage or pay a credit card off later. Not advisable, not anything we're recommending, but people do it. But yeah, this is still great innovation. And KG has done so many great things with this wallet. What do you have to make of this one, Ewok?
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Any more ways into PulseChain, the better, right? I mean, I still say the Coast guys do not get enough love. There's not enough about them out there partnering with Old Glory Bank. There's, it's a great fiat on-ramp as far as I'm concerned. It works.
I think it's the best.
It works so smoothly. You don't have to bridge. You go right in with your Old Glory account. You move it right to Coast. Boom, it's done within minutes. And then you're there. You buy. You don't have to wait for a bridge. You don't have to worry about bridge security. KG has done fantastic work with this wallet. Don't forget also the time token is part of internet money. You get kickbacks. I don't know how many people are out there doing it, but I probably get 15 to 20,000 pulse a week just by sweeping the rewards that I get from, it's 100% of the fees go back to the people that hold that token. So another great innovation where they're not making anything on it. It's the users that hold the token. So pretty awesome stuff. I do agree with you though on the fees for this. So, there are two things. I heard that I haven't used this yet, so I don't know for sure. This is only what I've heard through the grapevine, that you could get close to 10% in fees. And then using your credit card, be careful because they're going to probably get you for a cash advance.
Great point.
Depending on how it's classified as a purchase. So just be careful of that. Know that. Maybe do a little test amount first before you go in too heavy, just to see what the fees are going to be like. You don't have to do it all at once. Like I said, do a little tester, see what it's like before you do it. The point being though is more ways in, the better, right? The more eyes on the ecosystem, PulseChain itself, the better. Internet money has a built-in bridge essentially though. I mean, you can go from chain to chain. I believe it's connected to 21, it says right there, 21 other blockchains as well. So this isn't just a PulseChain thing. If you're into some of the other chains, I saw that what was was it Phantom just onboarded as well?
Wallet. Yeah.
So
not Solana wallet. It's I think the most used Solana wallet. But yeah, Phantom with a PH, not Phantom the token. But yeah, Phantom wallet. Yeah, Phantom wallet apparently also allowing for ability for PulseChain as well today, and some other wallet I never heard of called Hot Wallet or something. I'm not condoning any of these. I don't use them. I have used Phantom. It seems fine. But yeah, Phantom, as far as I knew before, supported like only Ethereum, Solana, and I think Polygon. And you could have like 3 wallets and one on there. So I'm not sure if now they have 4 and they just added PulseChain or what it is, but I did see they added compatibility for PulseChain. So that is very cool too.
All this means is the walls are slowly coming down. I mean, that's what it means. It means that when this thing really decides to take off, there's just going to be more eyes on it, and it's going to amplify everything. So, these are all great things. Like you said, we're not condoning the use of any of them. I haven't personally used any of these yet, but we're just getting it out there that it is news, and there are going to be more eyes on this. So,
yeah,
very, very positive for everyone.
Yeah. And again, even though there are those downsides potentially, and you brought up a great point with the credit card thing, like a cash advance. Yeah, usually a credit card company, and that's on the company. That has nothing to do with internet money or whoever you're rendering the payment to. But yeah, these credit card companies could call that a cash advance, and you'll start accruing interest immediately if that's the case. So yeah, you want to be careful with that. It may not be, even if you have because, I understand the strategy. If you're somebody who's late to the game and you're like, man, I really have to leverage this out, not condoning it. I'm just saying I understand there are people who might have a 12 months interest-free card where you're like, hey, I'm just going to max this out, buy like 10 grand of something in Pulse, and I'll pay it off later this year or throughout the year. Well, then all of a sudden you see it's a cash advance. You're immediately accruing interest and you owe it back like right away. So you want to be careful with that for sure. But it is cool that they have this tool if you want to get something on in there quick. And I co-sign what you said about Coast 100%. I mean, I don't want to say like resistant. It was nothing to do with Coast, but once you're okay, we'll say I was resistant, but it had nothing to do. What is true is it had nothing to do with Coast. It was just one of those things of if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I was just going through Coinbase and using the PulseChain bridge to get over because Ethereum gas fees have been nothing for a couple years now. And if you're only paying literally like $3 to bridge over, I figured why not. But now the thing, and Gwei is still low, but now the things could be getting a little bit busier. And you want to be forward thinking. We talked about this with Frank last week about if you're ever offboarding, it's one thing to put some money. I guess it always depends on the amount, but going into crypto through Coinbase is one thing, but going out of crypto, if you're going back to fiat through an exchange, I don't like the idea as much because also presumably you're coming out with more money than you came in with. And that is what's amazing about the Coast relationship with Old Glory Bank is you're going straight from crypto to fiat and putting it right in the bank, bypassing an exchange, which to me is like paramount, So
there's not going to be a freeze. There's not going to be a hold. There's not going to be anything, essentially you are taking your stable coins, burning them for fiat. Like it is a straight process right to your bank account. Yeah. You don't have that stop where they can just freeze it. So very, very cool. And I do agree with you. And a lot of people do the same thing. I was just giving you a hard time, because if something isn't broke, why fix it? It's working great. This is what I'm used to. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to mistakenly click a wrong button. I've been doing this in my sleep for how many months now when I've been DCAing. So I do get it, but people should always, always, always look for a backup option. Get comfortable with it before you have to use it, because there may be a time when something does happen and you're like, oh shit, now I got to get this out. Now I don't know what I'm doing. Where do I click? You start asking a bunch of questions. You start getting conflicting information. Get used to things before. That's why test nets are so valuable. That's why I tried to play around with the PulseChain testnet before PulseChain even went live for a lot of things, providing liquidity and doing different things in the farms. And, just get comfortable with it before it really matters. That is one thing that everybody should be doing.
I could not agree more. Yeah. And especially, again, like later in the bull market when you're wanting to potentially scale out, that's why I think Coast is so important. And just to see how you can lower your fees on there by buying the weight token and locking it up. If you buy 100K weight tokens and lock it up, last I looked, it was like $85. I don't know what it would be right now, but you pay that one time, lock up those tokens, and then your fees go down to 0.25%, which maybe like, oh, whatever. Well, they could be up to like 4% for some things on there or 1%. I mean, you're talking about quadrupling or the reverse of that, a quarter of the fees, for different things on Coast. So it is a very, very big thing. But again, paramount to me is that I won't have to pass through an exchange. That's the big thing that you want to make sure of. And like you said, just having tons of different ramps, whether it be on or off. I would have many bank accounts, or a few anyway. You don't have to have a million, but if you have 3, 4, 5 solid bank accounts, whatever it is, because you never know what happens with them either. I mean, who knows? That's why we love Old Glory, because they totally support crypto, and every day it seems like they're coming out with more news about the ways in which they support crypto. But you want to have friendly enough banks, and if they're your friend now, they may not be forever. So
for sure.
Cool. Well, good stuff from Internet Money. I think we should cut it there. I don't want to get into the kind of one other thing that we had, because I think it might be a little bit of a longer conversation. So I kind of want to bring that over to next week, or subsequent weeks. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it. But what do we have here?
Yes, Valiant Loki. There is KYC. Unfortunately, it's minimal. and there is no retention of any kind of information. It's basically used to approve you to see who you are, to just to make sure you are who you say you are, and then the information is tossed. So, they do not retain any records. Of course, Old Glory Bank, when you set up an account, they're gonna know who you are. You're gonna provide, identification because it is still a bank.
Right.
But as far as Coast goes with the KYC, it is very minimal. Your basic KYC, and then again, there's no retention of any of the records.
Yeah.
So just so people know that.
Yeah, and again, and that stuff's there, and it's not overly invasive. It's not any more KYC than anything that you've ever done before. And not only that, but you're not at risk of having your funds being held inexplicably. I mean, we've been seeing that happen on Coinbase. I mean, people are sharing that on Twitter a whole bunch. Or even maybe not inexplicably, but just the stupid rule they have for some people where it's like you can only move $1,000 at a time. Like, say you get paid, you put $2,000 on Coinbase, and it's like $1,000 of this will be held for a week, and you just can't move it. With Old Glory Bank, it's a bank. So you put the money in there, it's there. You go over to Coast, deposit that into Coast, and then mint your stable CST token, and you've got the stable coin right away. There's no waiting. So,
or you can go right into Hex, PulseChain. Like, you don't even have to stop at a stable coin if you don't want to.
Right.
You can send your USD right to Coast and just mint the PulseChain, PulseX, Hex. So yeah, it's super simple. Like I said, get in there, play around. Even if it's $20 worth, try it, get approved, and get to know it. That's all.
Yeah, you finally twisted my arm. I'll put my hand up right now. I was a convert. I was never somebody who didn't want to use it. Just like we said, it was like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I am somebody who wasn't familiar as much with Coast. Finally got OGB all set up and everything and onboarded and stuff. And I could not be happier with it and wish I'd have done it sooner. So, and I'll be very happy, when that ETH Gwei goes through the roof, so I don't have to be bridging anymore. I mean, that's going to be awesome. So
for sure.
Anyway, great stuff from KG and Internet Money. We had a great show with you guys tonight. Trump, unburdening crypto from what has been. It's been a fantastic week. As far as the fundamentals, we'd like to see some prices start to go up here too, but maybe we just have to keep being patient. But Digital Money Marcus, thank you, man. Valiant, Low Key, Duke of Booze, DGen Moonboy, of course, checks my pulse. Digital, I already said that. Cookies and Crypto, Hex Girl, I saw in here earlier. Ren. Shout out to you guys. Marco, Daddy Hexler, of course, longtime viewers, Brownies, Midlife Adventure. Appreciate all you guys. Take a break with Jake producing the show. We appreciate you. We do this every Wednesday night. And next week, are we good to say what we might be doing next week, Ewok? I don't know.
Not yet. Potentially a guest, but I haven't confirmed it yet. So
okay. No worries. Well, we will be here regardless next week, maybe with a third person, maybe with a third non-person. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll be here next week at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the first show in February. Will we have even more good news to potentially talk about? I hope so. Knock on wood. But that's going to wrap us up for tonight. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boy Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto. See you guys.
See ya.